Leah Martin-Brown. How you doing?
I am good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
That makes one of us.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, actually, I'm
Damn.
very under the weather right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That
That
came out.
sucks.
I apologize. That came out terribly. Like, I'm very excited to be here. Um, this is like my joy in life. It's like a labor of love, and I love talking to musicians. And you've got some exciting things going on.
Yeah, there's a lot happening at the moment, which is I'm very excited about and very grateful.
And all kind of fast, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. It was kind of like I've been pushing a boulder up a hill for like a long time.
Okay.
So it didn't feel fast, but then all of a sudden it fell down the hill and now it's like, oh, it's really fast. So it's yes and no.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where you're from, where you are currently. I think you're in LA.
I am currently in Los Angeles, yes.
Sunny LA. What's it like out there?
We've just come off the end of like a 5-day heat wave, so it's been like between 109 and 113 where I am. I think today it's getting cooler. I think it might be 90 today. So
Okay, well, that's in comparison, that is cooler.
it is. And also I'm Australian. I don't really mind the heat. It's a bit of a different heat here. It's a drier heat, but yeah, it has been a little toasty, I will admit.
Yeah, so the joke is it's not the heat that gets you, it's the humidity.
Yeah,
But you don't have that there.
absolutely.
Yeah, you're good.
No, I'm good here. It's good. So yeah, I am in Los Angeles. I am Australian. I came from a place called the Gold Coast in Australia. I moved to Los Angeles about 10 years ago now. In that whole move back during the pandemic, I also moved to Stockholm for a year, and that's where I came upon the project that I'm doing at the moment, which is an album with Mutt Lange and then another producer named Tony Nielsen, which is very exciting. And I have been working on this project since 2021. And the first single came out in March, and the most recent single came out, I think, almost a month ago now, like August 16th. So
Okay.
it's very exciting.
And you have 3 singles out currently that are available streaming. Shush, Boys, and Hysterical Love, correct?
That is correct. Yes. The first single came out was Boys, and that was everyone's introduction to what we were doing. Hysterical Love came out in May. And then, yes, Shush is the most recent. Yes.
Right. And what's that like? I mean, we live in a digital age, right? Where, you kind of have to do this waterfall thing with the singles and kind of release every, what is it, 6 weeks or whatever. Um, you look very young, so I imagine that you weren't, I'm sure you're familiar with, but you weren't producing when, CDs and records were like, king.
I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this since I was a kid. So I have been around long enough to see Spotify come in and the
Okay.
difference between how the releases used to be and how they are now. I definitely think the waterfall approach is actually super fun.
hmm
I try and have a positive outlook on it because once you release something, it's kind of out there and everyone's like, okay, that was great. What are you doing next? You're like, wait, but I spent years on this. What do you mean, what's next? So I do kind of enjoy like stringing everything out and introducing people to the sound more. I am kind of sad that the whole art of the album and building the story around the album, like Dark Side of the Moon is one of my all-time favorite records. That is a story. You sit there and you listen to that from beginning to end, and it takes you on a journey. I do really miss the art of that.
Yeah.
But I do understand that people don't really listen to music in the same way. So I think Spotify kind of messed things up as well with like the algorithmic things and
Right.
streaming, and now we have to also be content creators. It's like a whole thing.
It's a whole thing, right? It's a lot of work. And you don't have like the days of the record labels kind of doing everything for you. A lot of artists are like just, DIY. Is that same for you?
Definitely. I have been DIY for most of my career. I've been very lucky. When I was younger, my mum would help me, which was always really nice. I am lucky enough now that in the last year, I've kind of built a really cool team around me, but it's definitely still DIY and a lot of social media. And again, I'm trying to look at the positive side of that. Whereas if the label had full control, I wouldn't necessarily be able to push it in the direction I'd like to go. It would probably be more like, well, this is what we think will work. This is what you're doing. So I'm trying to be like, okay, I get to create my own brand and I get to tell my story the way I want to tell it with input from people in my team who I know and trust, rather than having like a big label telling me to like, hey, this is what you have to do. But it is very frustrating, I think, as well. I think there's two sides to it, you know?
It's like overwhelming to a degree. I mean, I'm not nearly on your level as far as, having to produce content and like, I try and, do the reels and the clips and all this kind of stuff to try and like, because some of these episodes, I mean, I won't keep you this long, but some of these episodes have gone an hour and a half. Some of them have gone 2.5 hours. And no one's going to listen to that whole thing, right? I'm not Joe Rogan, right? It's like I try to do the clips and so give a little sneak peek and hopefully like, if like this, for instance, I would try and do something that kind of highlighted what you're all about quickly and enough that people will be like, oh, I want to check her out. But it's a lot. It's, as a, I have a full-time job, I'm a husband, I'm a father, my kid's in baseball. So it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and it's also the algorithms are always changing and it's different depending on what app you're using. I find it very frustrating. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what will work. And then the videos that tend to do really well, especially on TikTok, I think I just filmed something in frustration yesterday and it got way more views than something I spent like an hour editing. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. And like the negativity always does better too. It's weird.
Yeah, there is that whole rage bait thing. I don't understand how people have the battery for that. I can't do that. If I get negative comments, I just kind of delete them. I know some people respond to them and make whole funny videos. I can't. Like, I'm a musician. I get rejected for a living. Like, I can't deal with that online. Like, I just want happiness and joy. And if you want to be a dick, you can fuck off because I don't have time for you.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, being a musician, being an artist in general is hard, right? Like it's so subjective and, not everyone's going to like you and what you do. And, not every painting is going to appeal to everybody. What's that been like, being an artist and kind of navigating that space?
I think in the very beginning when I was much younger, because I've known what I've wanted to do since I was a little kid. I started writing and playing when I was about 11. I started going out and playing gigs from the time I was like 13, 14. It's been kind of a long journey. So I learned very early on that there are critics and they don't hold back. Like they don't care you're 15. They will rip you a new one. So as a younger person, I definitely felt that a lot more. As an adult, I just kind of understand, not everything's for everyone and just taking it with a grain of salt. I tend to only pay attention to the people's opinions that I actually care about. So if my team tells me like, hey, this isn't the best, I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, maybe we should fix that. But if it's just some random person or just other, I'm like, oh, well, everyone has an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. I think if you let everyone get to you, you're going to probably burn out very quickly. So it's just learning who to listen to with constructive criticism, because it's really important to listen to constructive criticism. And then learning to identify between like something that's useful and something that's just like nasty or not useful.
Sure. Now, do you read your comments on stuff that you post?
I do read the comments most of the time. I try and respond to everyone that comments as well, because I really appreciate that people do take time to, if they're commenting, most of the time they've at least watched it. So I feel like I owe it to them. But I do have one video over on YouTube. It blew up. It was with my old band. It's still me, but it's got over like 17 million views. And so I get emailed the comments. And when it gets to that many views, some of these comments are horrible. Like, they are horrible. There's some that I'm like, oh, they're like, the snare sounds like this. I'm like, all right, go off, King, or whatever. You can have that. Like, I leave that there. That's fine. If someone wants to comment on a professional producer's snare sound when they don't know anything about mixing, they can do that. That's fine. But some of them are horrific. Like, some of the things they say, I'm like, are you okay? do you need a hug?
Yeah.
Like, that's mean. You guys are mean. And then I delete it and I cry and then I drink more coffee and it's fine.
That's like one bad thing about the internet is it gives everyone a voice, and like the assholes always like are somehow the loudest.
Yeah, I really don't understand what's wrong with some people, to be honest, because I could never leave and like I would never think to just jump on a something and leave a horrible comment.
Right.
Like I just don't understand. I'm like, you guys need a hug. You obviously have terrible lives and you're trying to escape from it. I'm gonna allow you this space to do that because you obviously need it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But the singles that are out, talk about your music in general. I have some notes here that your PR people gave to me. They said Def Leppard meets Katy Perry, and I agree with that. I do. That's a good description. It really is. But like talk about your music.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny because I kind of didn't they snuck that one in there and I was like, oh, okay, because I hadn't thought of it that way, but I guess it kind of is. So I come from a very like the hard rock world. I had another band that was like mine that I worked on for years that was like very heavy, very much in like the Sabbathy vein, like 90s. So to come into a project that is very pop leaning has been really fun. I think the album as a whole definitely has that Def Leppard vibe. Working with Mutt Lange, I think that's always going to steer it kind of in that direction. There are definitely some really big like power pop ballads that I love. There's one song that's not out yet that is, I think people are going to be like, wow, that's super pop. I love that this project is so fun and has like a playfulness to it, but there are also elements of it being very like emotional and even like a little like dark and dangerous, like Shush, for example, the single that just came out. I think out of all the songs, especially instrumentally, live, that song can be pushed to be quite heavy. That initial riff that comes in is kind of, you know, almost like dangerous and dark, but then you have that big super pop chorus. This music is very fun. I really enjoy singing it and performing it. And I think people are really resonating with it in a way that I didn't expect. So that's nice.
And typically, what do you write about?
So typically this project is something that I was asked to front. It was a project that did already exist. So I was asked to step in as the vocalist. I will be co-writing the second album. I'm actually flying to Sweden in 12 days to start that process with Tony and Mutt. So when I typically write as a songwriter, I definitely channel more of a sometimes I write about things that are going on in my own life. Sometimes I write about kind of struggling with addiction or like mental illness and things like that. I also write about fun things like just going out and partying and having a good time. Sometimes I just watch TV and I get super angry about what's going on in the world and I write about that as well. It kind of is a mixed bag. It just depends how I'm feeling at the time. Sometimes I'll read something and be inspired by what I've read. So I'll try and like add that like a version of that story. It really does depend on the day, to be honest.
I always find it fascinating, like people that are able to write songs. Like it's something I would never even. I don't even know where I would start. So I respect that so much because to be able to like be vulnerable, where maybe you write a song about stuff that you're going through and it applies to you, and that's kind of like an outlet for you, or just be able to kind of create this scene and tell a story. It's just really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really good fun.
And I feel like you're sneaky. Like you said, you've been doing this forever. Like I'd put you like in your 20s.
No, I'm not in my 20s.
So I'm just shocked that I've been doing this for a long time, and you're talking about Pink Floyd and things like that, and um, so yeah, you're experienced.
Yes, I definitely have music taste that is a lot older than I am, for sure. I really love 70s rock. I grew up on like Bon Scott era AC/DC. That's like my favorite. I'm very into the 90s. And I did know from a very young age what I wanted to do. So I've been playing music in some form since I was about 7. I started playing guitar when I was 11. And I just started gigging, writing, playing when I was like in school. I was in my first recording studio at 13. I moved to the United States in my very early 20s. I've been touring. I've toured the world. Well, not the world. I've done Europe, America, and Australia. So, I definitely feel like I've been doing this pretty much most of my life, to be honest. Like, from the time I was like consciously able to do things, maybe with only mild parental supervision. So it does seem like it's been a long time. So I'm very excited that this is finally coming through for me.
And some of the bands you mentioned, I mean, what's it like to have all these singles in the upcoming album being produced by, Mutt Lange, who, Def Leppard, AC/DC, things like that. What's that like?
It was crazy because when this happened, when I was about 12, I obviously Highway to Hell is one of my favorite albums, Back in Black as well. Even if it's Brian Johnson, it's still Black in Black, like, oh my God. And I always, like, as a 11, 12-year-old girl, I was like, damn, I would love to work with this producer one day. And my stepdad's like, his name's Mutt Lange. And I was like, oh my God, because, at 12, you're like, what is this?
Sure.
And I was like, I would love to work with Mutt Lange one day. As a 12-year-old, I was like, yes, there you go, dear. Very good. Very nice. Haha. Lovely. And so, then this whole thing comes around. It's like, oh, you're going to work with Mutt Lange. I was like, are you kidding? Like, what is, like, to me, it's just this amazing thing that I can't believe it happened, really. And I still pinch myself every day. And I just have to I try and like just be like, oh yeah, Mutt Lange, whatever. Because if I don't, like, I'm going to lose my shit because I just feel so grateful and so blessed and just like out of my mind that he even wanted to work with me in the first place. Because obviously, even though this part of the project needed a vocalist, he had to approve it. And I had to audition for it. I had to do this. And even the fact that we're already throwing around ideas for the second album, he sent me like one song now that I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be great. Even the fact he wants to continue working with me is just like, are you sure? Are you like listening to someone else?
It doesn't seem right.
This doesn't seem like it's correct, but I'm just gonna go with it, and it's fine.
What was it like telling your dad that, hey, this is?
It was pretty funny, actually, because I was talking to my dad about I didn't tell anyone really for a little while until I knew it was going to be a thing. And so usually, because I come from a very heavy rock background, like my stepdad kind of knows, but there are some bands my dad doesn't. So I've told him in the past about a few things. He's like, oh, okay, all right. My stepmom's like, oh, okay, who's that again, dear? My mom knows, but so when I expected the same with Mutt Lange, not thinking, and I was like, oh yeah, and my stepmom's like, oh my God. I'm like, what? My dad's like, oh my goodness. So like every week they're like, how's it going? How's it going? Obviously my mum's been across it for years but just my dad in particular, he's just like Mutt Lange and everything because he's very much like Australian football, like things like that. So he was blown away and he tells everyone, it's like, my daughter's working with Mutt Lange. And I'm like, damn it.
Like,
so
I told you.
Yeah, I told you I'd do it. See? It's very funny.
Dreams do come true.
They do.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And you've also collaborated with a bunch of big names. Johnny Depp being one of them. Guys from Atreyu. What's that been like?
Yeah, so the Johnny Depp was pretty amazing. I did Johnny Depp and Joe Perry on the same day. I got this phone call from a friend of mine and he's like, hey, can you do a backing vocals gig in a few days? And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm kind of getting over a sickness. He's like, do you want to do this gig? I was like, okay, I'll do this gig. No problems. So I turn up and it's Johnny Depp and Joe Perry. I was like, oh, this is why. So that was amazing. They were just the nicest people on stage. Johnny would we were standing right behind him. He'd turn around and be like, you girls sound great. We're like, thank you. We got to meet him. That was wonderful. Atreyu, I loved, I worked with Travis and with Dan. That was such an incredible experience. We co-wrote 3 songs together for my band Evol Walks' old EP. 2 of them made it onto the record and they're the coolest guys. Like, they're so fun. They're so nice. They're just brilliant musicians. The riffs they were coming up with, working and writing with them just felt so easy. Going into the sessions at the time, like back then, I think when I wrote with them, it was few years ago now. I think I was like 25 or 26. And I was scared. I was like, damn, these guys, like, this is a tree. Like, don't fuck this up.
Yeah.
And then I went in and they were just like so chill, and it was just really lovely. They're just such nice guys. And the songs are great. They're some of my favorite songs I've ever written, to be honest.
How are you able to like keep it together?
I'm very good at, I think, and maybe it's growing up being Australian, or maybe it's just growing up having like my expectations managed quite well. I always downplay a lot of the stuff I do, like mentally. I think anytime I've ever achieved something, I've been like, hey, don't get too excited. It's not like it's a Grammy. Like, oh, just chill. So I'm able to just like push it down, because it's like, oh, you're not that good. Like, you need to calm down. I kind of just like, I think I'm so good at like just self-deprecation that it kind of just translates into like, oh, she's like chill. Whereas like I'm losing my shit, but my mental voice is like, calm down. You're not Taylor Swift. Don't get that excited.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, I think I'm just very good at telling myself I'm not good enough, maybe. I should go unpack that somewhere else.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I've had the honor of interviewing, like the lead singer of Everclear and members of Breaking Benjamin, and like I stand here and I'm like, oh my God, I'm shaking. I'm like, what am I gonna like? How am I even in this room? So I can't imagine being like on that level. You're auditioning, you're performing. It's like, how do you even do that?
Yeah, I wish I knew. I honestly just think I've got very intense self-talk.
Good for you. I guess you kind of have to, right?
I think so, because there's definitely that element of like, oh my God, like if I let myself, I think I would just like freak out. And I can't afford to do that when I'm going into these sessions. So I lean more into the like, the negative side that you're not meant to. And it's like, believe in yourself. Like I lean more into the like, no, like chill. And I can do the believe in yourself later once
Right.
it's finished.
What advice would you give to artists that have these opportunities like you have? Just kind of keep yourself kind of centered and not think too much of it.
I think it's super important, number one, even if you are going to do what I do and be like, calm down, just back yourself and believe that you can do it. Because if you don't actually fully believe you can do it, it will overwhelm you. When I go into these situations, even though I'm saying all these things to myself, I know in my heart that I belong there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been put there in the first place. So I think believe in yourself, get excited, but also be focused. Like treat this as a job. If you were going to work, no matter where you work, whether you're a high-powered CEO, whether you work at like, Hot Topic or a retail store, sometimes you go to work in any other job and you are asked to do a task that's like, okay, this is more than I would usually be asked to do. If you're in a normal job, you don't go, oh my God, you're just like, oh, okay, cool. How do I do that? Right. Okay. I'll get that done for you today. No problems. That's kind of the attitude you have to have. It has to be like, yeah, this is exciting, but this is work and I need to focus. And then after that, you can be like, oh.
Now, I heard a rumor, and I might be making this up, but you were in line for Linkin Park.
Was I?
No, what do you think about that? I mean, that's like that's a huge thing right now. People are they love the new lineup. They hate the new lineup.
Honestly, like I have been a huge fan of Dead Sarah for years.
Huge fan, right? So good.
Huge fan. I love Emily Armstrong. I don't know about the other stuff. I don't want to give space to the other stuff because honestly, like the band said yes. That's all I have. I don't need to know about the rest. I think Emily is an incredible singer. I think her songwriting is incredible. And Chester was Chester. You can't replace Chester. But I think having a female vocalist in a band like Linkin Park, especially a vocalist with a proven track record with this insane voice like Emily Armstrong, I think it just makes perfect sense. I'm really excited to see what they do next. I love the new song. I'm all about it, to be honest. And
I am too.
I haven't listened to the rest of it. I don't care. Like, I'm not listening.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I'm super pumped about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the internet went wild.
It did go wild. I was like, damn, okay, we can't have a nice thing for like more than 5 minutes. All right.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Chester's not here, and it's like they wanted to get it back together, and they found someone that they felt fit the role, and onward.
Yeah, and she's amazing. Like Dead Sarah, again, one of my favorite bands for a long time. So I read the news and I was like, oh my God. So
Well, I had no idea. I'm like, who is this? Is Emily girl? And then I Googled it, and I'm like, holy shit, this is Dead Sarah. That's awesome.
yeah, she's a badass.
Yeah. I was watching like a Zane Lowe interview with the band, and I have to finish it yet, but it was really good. So yeah, same. I'm also looking forward to the next step from them.
Yeah, it will be, the new single's great. So I'm excited to see the album.
Yeah, their strategy too, though, is like they did a countdown, right? And then I started counting back up. And that was dangerous.
Yep. It was very dangerous. And then the live stream is when they that live concert is when they revealed it. That was very clever. Very clever.
So wild.
Yeah.
So wild. That's what's cool about art, especially now these days. Like, we talk about the internet, and I always say, like, I think the internet's a blessing and a curse, but like it affords us so many opportunities, like, to do this cool stuff that Guns N' Roses, when they came out, they never did that kind of stuff. It was different for them, obviously, but
no, it's I love seeing. I know we talk about how terrible social media is and the internet, but the flip side is that it has given artists a whole different way of kind of communicating things, marketing things, doing things. It's allowed a whole nother level of marketing and release, and it's kind of cool in that way. If you can harness that and use it to your advantage, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We've never had it before. It's just trying to get it to your advantage that's the frustrating part.
Yeah. What's it like, being an artist, and you're kind of like, back then, before it existed, like, you kind of, I don't know, see it in a personal life because you're still a superstar, but like, I feel like now you're required to be, communicating all the time, whether it's commenting back or, posting a video. You kind of like, fans know you more than they've known anybody in the past, right? It's like, is that weird?
Yeah, I definitely think it is very different to the beginning, because in the beginning there was not that level of access. It was just like, here's a photo, have a nice day, or come to the show, you'll see it. We didn't, when I first started, we didn't even have Facebook, I think as artists, we have to really think how we want to present ourselves online, because of the level of access that anyone has, not just fans of our music, but anyone, because unless it's a band page, like my page, for example, is an artist page, but it has elements of my personal life in it. So when I was younger and before I really figured that out, I would put a lot of stuff online that I should never have been putting online in line with like my artist page. Like I was sharing far too much.
Yeah.
And there were people that just knew all of these things about me that I was like, you probably shouldn't know that. So I think it's walking that fine line between being personable and putting stuff out there so people are like, wow, she's a real person and we're friends and I love her music, but also holding a lot back. So it's like, actually, this is what I want you to see, and this is in line with the brand I'm creating. Yeah. I think it's just walking that line, and also making sure, like, I've had things where I didn't really think about what was posting, and then I'd run into someone like really close to my house and they'd be like, yeah, you live here, right? Oh yeah. And I was like, oh no. And I didn't even think about, I was like, I shouldn't, okay, let's be a bit more mindful here.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Blessing and a curse, I would say that.
Yeah, blessing and a curse for sure.
But the album is coming out this year, correct?
We were just having this discussion with my manager last week. I believe it's going to be in November this year, although there was some discussion of holding it until like February 2025 rather than November 24, but we're still kind of bouncing between the two ideas, and I think we'll solidify that in the next few weeks. I think it's probably going to be November, to be honest.
But it's all done already.
Oh yeah, it's all finished. Everything was finished in 2021.
You did say that. Now, what's that like? Like, I mean, we're talking 3 years. So what's that like? Because I always think about, if I were to create something and sit on it for that long, I'd probably want to like, oh, I need to change this. I need to like tweak this. Like, what's it like sitting on something for that long and not like touching it again?
Well, the songs have definitely been changed a little bit since 2021. Tony and Mutt have obviously added things. We've put in guitars. If there's been things that have changed, like in sonic trends, they've kind of edited them. But the hardest thing, I think, was when we did this project, I didn't have a label. I didn't have any of the things I have now, because the album was going to be that. So just doing all of this work and having all of these hopes and shooting videos and doing all of this stuff, but not being allowed to talk about it, it was really hard. It sounds, in the past, I've sat on albums for like 2 years or whatever, but everyone's known there's been an album. I'm allowed to talk about it. It's like, oh, it's coming. Like, I've played the songs live and people have been like, gotten used to hearing them live. Not being able to talk at all about it was really difficult. And even though I knew I was doing stuff, people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, something, nothing, whatever. It's like 3 years of just being like, am I even an artist anymore? What if this doesn't work? Do I just need to quit? Like, I went through this whole kind of personal turmoil. I honestly nearly was like, I'm just going to move back to Australia. Maybe I'll move to Stockholm, because I had a partner at the time that was Swedish. I was like, maybe I'll just live with him and I'll just give up on my dream. Like, I was very dramatic because I'm an artist. Of course I was dramatic. And so I couldn't tell anyone what I did until this year. Like, right before the first single came out, we finally signed that record contract. And then it was like, cool, everyone, this is what I've been doing. But before that, I was like, just spiral off into oblivion on a regular basis. My manager was probably just like, oh my God, she's calling me again.
I can't imagine. I really can't.
Yeah, I wouldn't want anyone else to. I mean, bands work on records and they sit for a year or 2 years. Like, that's
of course, yeah.
But they're usually touring or doing press, or people know about it. Like, it was the whole no one knowing about it. I'm like, I think they think I'm lying at this point.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. We'll believe when we see it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. As far as a live performance goes, what can people expect from that?
I think people can expect the live performance to be more in line with what my background is and what my history is. Obviously, we're going to keep those poppy elements because people are really resonating with them. But I'm definitely going to have a live band. I'm not going to be playing to, obviously there'll be maybe some tracks in there. I hate tracks. I usually do not use tracks at all, but I'm sure we'll have to use some kind of synth or something in there, because it's a discussion I have to have. But it is going to be more rock and roll. It is going to be very fun and intense. I'm very excited to bring that part of the project to life, so people can really understand, like, yeah, I am the same person, I am the same musician, we're just fusing these two things together. And I'm really excited, because live is where that's my favorite part. Like, I love being on stage, I love creating a show, and I love performing. So I think everyone can expect to have a very pop version of, like, let's bang our fucking heads.
Right. So awesome.
Yeah.
Are there dates lined up for that, or?
No, I am not playing at the moment. My manager wants me to just kind of like sit and chill until the album comes out. I have done a few kind of recorded performances. So I did an acoustic version of Boys with some guys from this place called From Earth, which is on their YouTube. And I also got to go to Studio 606 back in June and do a live version of Hysterical Love acoustically, which is going to be launched with Audix microphones. I don't know when that comes out though, because it's part of their new, like, it's part of something that they're launching. But aside from that, I haven't been able to do anything. So I'm just sitting here like, please, can we release the album so I can play a show?
Well, hopefully that happens quick.
I think it will, because my manager is definitely getting sick of me being like, yo, I'm just going to play this show if you don't give me something. And he's like, okay,
All right, all
come
right.
to Sweden. He's like, just come to Sweden. That'll distract her for a bit.
That's funny. That's
Yeah.
funny. As someone who's been around music for a long time, since you said 13 or so, what does music mean to you?
It's a very deep question. I think honestly, music is literally everything. It's just my reason. It's something that has always been there for me. It's a way that I have been able to express myself when expressing myself was very difficult. It is just, it's one of the most constant things that just brings joy to my life and kind of brings meaning to my existence. And that is why I have made it into my career, because there's nothing else that I've ever had or experienced that has given me what music in itself has, not just creating music, obviously, not just performing music, but listening to music and discovering music and sharing music with people that I love. It's, to me, I know it sounds corny, but like to me, it really is everything. Like without it, I don't really know who I'd be, if that makes sense.
Well, I think that goes for uh, almost everyone, even if you don't perform it. Like, where would we be without it?
Mm.
Like so like music is tied to so much of our lives. I mean, like for me, for instance, like I could not so much as of lately because of a few different reasons, but like I could tell you when an album came out almost to like the day, usually within the week. And now I have to own it, but I just applied so many life moments to certain releases. Now it's different too because you would wait 2 years for a full length album from your favorite artist. Now we're getting singles and things like that. So I think that's why I haven't been able to apply it to certain moments. Um, but yeah, I mean, music is just such a powerful thing.
Yeah, it definitely transcends a lot of boundaries that would otherwise be there. Even with people who, you may not speak the same language, but you can both share the same song and feel the same things and kind of connect that way. It's very powerful, I
Yeah.
think.
What's it like knowing that, your music and your art is going to live even longer than you? Because
I think
that's a neat thing.
it is. It is. It's very special, and it's something that you don't really think about as much as you should. But definitely when I'm writing or I'm trying to be very intentional with the fact that this will exist forever if it's allowed to, or until the internet explodes or something. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool that we can listen to something that someone who even died like 300, 200 years ago or something wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's it like, when you see fans either relate to your songs or sing them back to you or because music has had the power to save lives. Music has the power to um, do so many things. What's it like to kind of have that connection with your audience?
It's pretty special. And I get surprised every time it happens. So when I do play shows and I see people sing the lyrics, I'm like, oh, you listen to the lyrics? Oh. And when I sometimes get messages from people that say, like, I listened to this song or these lyrics, and they'll go into this full in-depth analysis. I've met people in person that have said, like, the way you use your voice on this song, and they've sat there and like given me this whole essay. I'm like, you listen to my stuff like that? Like I'm just kind of blown away and very humbled, because that's just, it's so special. And I feel really honored that someone would pay that much attention to what I've made. And I just want to give them a big hug, because that's the whole reason you do it. So you create this thing because you're feeling a certain way and you release it and you hope that you can have someone else out there relate to it.
Yeah.
And when they do, it's just like, oh, I'm so happy. Like, I'm so happy about this.
I can't even imagine. I really can't. Like, I don't think I've done anything in my life that like has had that much of an impact outside of being a father. Like I know my son and my daughter like look up to me and that's special, but like they're two people. They live with me in my house every single day. Like you're reaching new fans across the world and it's just like it's just crazy to even like try and comprehend.
It's really bizarre. Actually, something really strange happened like end of last year. I was at home and I've got this friend. We've been friends since I was like 18. Like we used to go out and party together and stuff, and he and I have stayed friends. And I get this random message from him from this little town in New South Wales in Australia, and he's like, "Leah, you will never believe what's happened." He was down there for a funeral, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm so sorry that you're like I'm," and he's like, "No, no, like I get that," but he sent me a photo of the funeral program, and the song that they were walking out to was one of my band songs.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't even know these people. Like I've never met them.
Right.
Like my friend happened to be, and I was just like, whoa, that's like
Wild.
crazy. Yeah, wild.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I just can't. But
it's weird.
it's you never know. And the world is, I think, smaller than we think it is to a degree.
It really is. I know everyone says 6 degrees of separation, but I honestly believe there's closer to 3 or 4.
If you knew where I was from, I feel like so it's northeastern Pennsylvania. I always say Scranton because people seem to recognize that from The Office, right? Here it's like 1.
Oh.
It's like 1 degree. Like everyone knows everyone here. I remember I went to Colorado and I ran into someone that I knew in the airport, like in the Colorado airport, like
oh my
or
God.
Denver or whatever. Yeah. And that's happened more than once. It's wild.
That is wild.
Well, I hope that this album comes out in November and doesn't get pushed to next year. That's too long.
I agree.
But while people are waiting with anticipation, where can they find you online? What would you suggest that they kind of dive into there?
So I am most active over on Instagram. I post every day. I always drop information about when I'm going to be releasing. There is going to be 2 singles before the album, and I think unless it gets pushed a little bit because we're filming some videos, it'll be end of September. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I am on TikTok. I'm doing my best. Don't you judge.
I don't even get me started.
Yeah, don't even. I'm trying. Okay, I'm trying. And yeah, if you want to listen, obviously there's my stuff, Leah Martin-Brown. I've got 3 singles out. And you could probably go on a bit of a deep dive. I have a playlist of my entire discography that's been released since I was about 18 on that profile. So if you hear 3 songs, you're like, I'd like to hear more. Well, you know what? You've got at least 10 to 15 years of stuff that you can listen to. But I'm not meant to be promoting that right now.
Well, I'm glad you did because I'm looking for, I want to go and dig into that past a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then YouTube, you said too, right?
I do. Yeah. Well, thank you for reminding me. I do have YouTube. So Leah Martin-Brown, I have my video for boys that's up. I mentioned I was going to Sweden in 13 days. I am filming 3 more music videos. So there will be more going on that page. And then I have another YouTube for my band, Evol Walks. We have way more videos up there. You can check out those. It's a much different kind of vibe. But yeah, so there will be more music videos for my solo project coming out. And if you want to follow along, I will be posting vlogs on TikTok and Instagram about my time in Sweden. So you can really like get an idea of what's going on just to, make sure everyone's staying engaged.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for spending some time today. I'm genuinely sorry for what I said to open the show. I didn't mean it like that. I was trying to be funny, actually.
You just hate me, and I'm okay.
No,
I was trying to deal with it.
I was actually trying to be funny, and I'm not funny, so I shouldn't try to be funny. And it came
Luckily,
out wrong.
I'm Australian.
It came out completely wrong. I'm like, that was terrible.
I was like, damn, okay, go for the throat. Let me get some more espresso.
Yeah, I'm terribly sorry. I've actually been thinking, you're talking this last 40 minutes. I'm like, wow, I'm a real jackass.
I'm Australian. Like, I don't. It's very hard to offend me. Like, you'd have to insult my mother or my grandmother or something. It's fine.
It's so terrible. People are gonna watch this and be like, "Wow, what the hell?"
It's fine. And then I go and talk about hate comments, and I'm like, I'm just gonna give them space.
No, it was an absolute pleasure to speak with you, and I'm so happy you gave me the time. And I'm very honored to be able to do this and talk to people and meet people like you, and just kind of get a little peek behind the curtains about like who you are and why you do what you do and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really have enjoyed our chat. It's been fun.
Awesome. Well, I will tag you and everything when this goes up, probably like a week or two. But yeah, we'll look forward to that album.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to share it.
Awesome. Leah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll see you.
Okay, see ya.